Testing 1 2 1 2. Testing 1 2 2. Everybody, I think we are live. We are live here for the first episode of Monday Night Nerd. Holy crap. I cannot believe I'm actually doing this. So, welcome to Monday Night Nerd. This is episode 1. I am so happy for anybody that's in the live stream or watching this post-dated. For those who don't know, and for those newcomers, because this is the first time I'm doing this, so you're all newcomers. My name is Michael Myers. I am Myers Corp Creations. I have been a nerd for many, many decades. I have been going to comic conventions for over a decade. I have been cosplaying for over a decade. I've been a gamer for over a decade. I've done tons of nerdy things. And I thought this was the perfect opportunity and time to talk to people about nerdy things that I enjoy and what what I think is some pretty cool things going on in nerddom and some stories that I've experienced over the years of going to conventions. And like I said, this will be a weekly video series where I'm going to be going live every Monday night at 7 o'clock to talk about a different topic. Tonight's topic will be my first convention at Fan Expo 2009. I cannot believe it was that long ago. I've been going to Fan Expo for over 10 years. It feels like just last year was my first year. But here we are over a decade later. But because this is the first episode, I will give you guys a rundown of how this show will be laid out. What we're going to do is we're first going to talk about some news and current topics. Then we're going to talk about our sponsor. I can't believe we already have a sponsor. First episode sponsor. I don't think anybody else has that. We're going to do a segment called Thanks for the Memories, which is going to be talking about anybody who is a celebrity in the world of nerddom and that we may have lost recently. And second last will be the main event, which will be the topic at hand, the big topic. And then we will do a quick Q&A at the end. If anybody has any questions that want to be featured on the Q&A, please DM me at Myers Corp on Instagram. Send me a message, send me your questions. We got 3, but I would love to hear what you guys want me to answer. And let's get this show started. Let's talk about some news. So, first topic of the night, we're going to talk about Ant-Man Quantumania. That movie came out on Thursday. It is the newest movie in the Marvel MCU, starring Paul Rudd as Ant-Man. This is the third Ant-Man movie, and this is the beginning of Phase 5 in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I'm starting to not be able to continue to figure out which one ends a phase and starts a phase and where we are in the phase. I have to admit, it was a lot easier back in Phase 1 and Phase 2 when you can bookend those movies, but now it's getting a little jumbled. So let's jump in. Ant-Man, I saw it opening night. A couple friends, Dave, Sean, Thomas, and a couple others came out, and we saw it at our local cinema, the good cinema that has the nice reclining seats that are great in good movies and bad in slow movies because it just makes you want to fall asleep. So we saw it opening night. It was a full packed house. I was pretty close to a sellout. We're going to go over a little bit of the movie. I'm not going to spoil anything. I promise that. And let's talk about Ant-Man. When I first started hearing reviews of this movie, it was probably Tuesday before the movie came out, and it was getting just beaten up by critics. It was, it wasn't what Marvel used to be. They're slacking. There's too many jokes. After seeing the movie, I kind of agree and I kind of don't. So the overall story that I think a lot of people can pick up from the trailer is something happens. Again, I don't want to spoil it for anybody. I do have a few friends who try not to watch any of the trailers before they go see the movies, so I don't want to spoil too much of it. something happens where Ant-Man and his family are shrunk down and enter the quantum realm, and they realize that the quantum realm that they were told about was very quiet, nothing really happened there. There's actually a lot of civilization, let's call them, down there, and stuff happens. Villains are brought in. I think it's no secret a villain, Kang, from that we saw at the end of Loki, makes his first movie appearance, and they have to figure out a way to get out of the quantum realm. So overall, I have to say that the story was good. The overall cinematic world of the quantum realm is something that I really paid close attention to. I am very much a stickler for sci-fi, which I'm not actually a big sci-fi fan. I like sci-fi. I'm not saying I'm not, but there is a lot of sci-fi out there that has, let's say, they do a human version of something, or you can tell it's like it's a cat lizard or something like that. You can kind of tell what they're trying to put together that made a character. When I think of the quantum realm, there was a lot of things there that I went, I've never seen that before, or it probably exists somewhere, but I've never seen it. So that really impressed me. I think the Disney movie Strange Worlds that just came out is getting praised for that. There's a lot of characters and environments in that are you don't see anywhere else, and I think Ant-Man did a very good job at that. The acting was amazing. Paul Rudd, amazing as Ant-Man as always. He is probably the most quippy and jokey of the characters besides Tom Holland Spider-Man, which is kind of set. That's Spider-Man, so you'd expect him to do that. But I think Paul Rudd does a very good job at he has his jokes, but he's able to pull it back in serious moments, which I was worried about. He was going to try and keep joke, but he actually pulls it in for a few dramatic parts, and I'm really happy that they wrote it that way. Let's move on to Kang, who is the big bad and will be the big bad moving forward in the MCU. I personally was not jumping for joy when I saw him in Loki. I thought he did a good job, but I felt like they were holding him back. And I know that because they mentioned the multiverse, there would be other versions of him. So I didn't want to sit there and say, nah, I don't care. It was just, I felt like he needed more. This gave him more. He is incredible in this. They wrote that character so well. It should be called the Kang movie. It was that good of a movie. His performance was I think it was my friend Sean who brought up a very Vader quality where you really do feel the threat when he is in the room, which I think a lot of Marvel villains are having trouble with. I think, again, they're trying to be very quippy and very jokey when it comes to the villains, but this one was just, they did him so well. And I'm glad we're going to see more of him. I think he's going to have a blast with that role. I think because Kang has so many different versions, I think he'll get to play 50 different characters as one character. So I think that is perfect for him. So definitely a double thumbs up for him. Overall, like I said, go see it. I've been asked, is it a movie I should see in theaters? I wouldn't run out to see it in theaters. I believe there are some 3D versions as well in some theaters. I don't know if 3D is really necessary. I don't know if you really need to see it in theaters, but overall, I definitely recommend Ant-Man. I was saying to a friend of mine, I think Ant-Man is probably one of the most underrated trilogies in the Marvel Universe. Thor had Dark World, and I know a lot of people do not like the new one, Love and Thunder, but I think it's not a bad movie. But I think the three Ant-Mans are probably some of the best MCU movies out there that don't get the respect they deserve. So double thumbs up for Ant-Man. Go see it. I don't know when it's coming out on Disney Plus. They did wait a little bit for Wakanda, so could be in a month, could be in a few months. You have to wait and see. But again, double thumbs up for Ant-Man. Now, let's move on to The Flash. A little drinky there. The Flash trailer came out last week, and there has been a lot of rumblings about that trailer. The Flash trailer, I think a lot of people knew was coming, but I don't think they were ready for the impact that it had. For those who don't know, Flash is going to have its own movie based off the Ezra Miller character from Justice League. I don't know. Yeah, he was in Justice League. Batman versus Superman. Ezra Miller has had a checkered past recently. For those who haven't been keeping up, I don't remember the exact details, but police and law enforcement have been involved with what they've done. So I know a lot of people were kind of poo-pooing this movie and worried that this was a waste of time. Man, this trailer knocked it out of the park. I think it was no secret if you've read anything that Michael Keaton makes a return in this movie as Batman, reprising his role as Bruce Wayne, because this also has a multiverse element to it based off the Flashpoint comic book series, which I believe they're going to highly pull from. Overall, it was an amazing trailer. And I think the thing that made me smile, laugh, whatever you want to call it, when reading the comments based off how good the trailer was, there was not much mention of Ezra Miller. There was a lot of praise for the way Kara, Supergirl, spoilers, is in the trailer. The return of Zod is in the trailer. Again, Affleck is in it. Keaton's in it. I think everyone is looking at everything but Ezra Miller, and I think that is the best thing to do. I think DC is pretty much set on not continuing with Ezra Miller after this movie. So I do have some friends who have said they're not going to see this because of the Ezra Miller situation, and I completely understand it. Sorry, 2023. They are not the greatest person in the world based off what has allegedly happened. And I don't think me going there supports Ezra Miller. I think going supports the idea of Keaton. I saw a video of, I cannot remember the actress's name, but she is on a call with some DC executives, and she's told right there on the call that she is going to be Supergirl, and she breaks down in tears. And watching that made me think, you know what? I need to go see this movie for her. I need to go see this for Keaton, because this might be the last time we get to see Michael Keaton as Batman. I'm going for everything but Ezra Miller. And I think a lot of people will be doing that when we go see that in theaters, which I believe is only a couple months away. So that will be another big thing coming up in the world of comics. Now, because I am a giant geek and a giant nerd, whatever you want to call me, I have a wide range of interests that include comics, cosplay, movies, music, etc. One of those things is wrestling. And I know wrestling is not everybody's cup of tea, but we're just going to quickly talk about Saturday night. Sorry. I'm used to pay-per-views being on Sundays, but now, premium live events is what they're called now. The premium live event on Saturday night was Elimination Chamber, and that was from Montreal, Quebec, Canada. I have not been following the WWE as much as I used to, based off many different reasons. Quality of the show might be part of it. Also, just I've hit an age where I've got 20,000 other things that I got to do instead, including cosplay. So I haven't been keeping up, but I have been keeping up on the main storyline that happened at the event, and that is the Bloodline storyline. And it culminated, I want to say. Maybe there might be something in the future. But anyways, for those who don't know, over the past 2 years, character named Roman Reigns, who's actually the cousin of The Rock, has been the WWE champion. And he has aligned himself with his actual family, a couple members of his actual family, and made a group called the Bloodline. And they have been dominating. He has been the champion for 2 years. He has been an absolute dominant champion. And during this time, an individual named Sami Zayn, who's from Montreal, smaller guy, really funny, wanted to join the group, wanted to be part of a family. There was a lot of hesitation from Roman Reigns, and finally, after a lot of poking, prodding, etc., he was finally accepted into the bloodline, I believe early last year. And he became the star. He became the best part of the show. He was making everybody in the group break character because he was making them laugh in the ring. It was amazing. But we always knew deep down that he was going to defy Roman Reigns, because Roman Reigns was very much an angry dog and was always going after the members of the family and the bloodline if they did anything wrong. And Sami Zayn was usually getting the brunt of it. Well, 2 months ago at the Royal Rumble, Sami Zayn finally said, "I've had enough," and he wound up with a chair and smacked Roman Reigns in the back, and the place exploded because this is long-term storyline, which was amazingly done. And coming off of that, he was given a WWE Championship match at the next pay-per-view, which was on Saturday in his hometown of Montreal. And it was one of the best matches I've seen in a long, long time. The crowd was electric. It is probably one of the few matches that I would sit down, a non-wrestling fan, and say, I know you don't like this, but just watch this and just try to enjoy this match, because I really think it would put on a very good impression on somebody who doesn't understand or just doesn't like it anymore. This is what it is now. That match was the main event, and it was electric. Spoilers for anyone who doesn't know, Sami Zayn did not win because next month is WrestleMania, and that's the biggest show of the year. And Roman Reigns is probably going to lose it then to the person who won the Royal Rumble, which is Cody Rhodes, the son of the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes. And but the rest of the card was amazing from what I saw. I've seen little clips here and there. I wasn't able to watch the whole thing yet, but the 2 Elimination Chamber matches were amazing. The men's was great. Seeing Austin Theory do a Hurricane Rana off the top of the cell, or off the top of the chamber, watching Asuka just beat the crap out of everybody. All in all, it was a great show, except for Bobby and Brock, but I think we all saw that coming. But other than that, it was a great show. It actually got me a little excited to watch WrestleMania in about a month. But overall, great show. If you're a wrestling fan and you haven't watched in a while, try and find it. Watch on the WWE Network. It was a great way to bring you back into the fold just before the biggest match, or the biggest event of the year. Now, let's move on to the next segment of the show, our sponsor. Now, I did mention at the beginning of the show that we do have a sponsor on our first show. That sponsor is a very important sponsor. The sponsor, I wouldn't be doing this show without her. She funded this show along with me, obviously. That sponsor is my wife. She is my first sponsor. She will be always the top sponsor on this program because she is incredible, and I would not be sitting here having the cojones, guts, whatever you want to call it, to be sitting here in front of a camera speaking to everybody in the world who might be watching. So to my wife, thank you very much for always supporting me and always sponsoring me to do anything I've ever wanted to. I really couldn't be here without you. So thank you very much. Now, enough of that show of emotion, let's call it. We're going to go to another show of emotion, and we're going to bring things down a little bit. If I had a dimmer on my lights, I would dim them down a little bit. We're going to talk about Thanks for the Memories. And if you are just joining, thank you very much. Greatly appreciate this. Thanks for the Memory section of the show. We'll be speaking about some people, some celebrities who we've lost this week or recently. I'm going to cover a couple weeks because this is episode 1. First, I want to speak about a longtime piano player and a longtime musical artist who I know a little bit about, but he's probably known to my generation and newer generations from a different thing, not his music, but from a movie. That person is Burt Bacharach. We lost Burt Bacharach on the 8th of February. He was 94. He, if you don't know, was the piano player on top of the bus in Austin Powers in the first movie. He's the one that sings "What the World Needs Now is Love, Sweet Love." And that scene was from a movie that I'm hit and miss with my name being what it is and growing up in school at the time. That was a movie that got shoved down my throat a little bit from friends and fellow classmates of, hey, Austin Powers, yeah. So I have a little bit of a love-hate relationship. I haven't watched it in years, so probably if I watched it now, I'd be a little kinder to it than I was back then. But unfortunately, yes, at 94, we lost Burt Bacharach, an incredible piano player. I know him from a couple other songs that he wrote. I cannot think of them right now, but he will be missed. I know he was a legend in the music world. Secondly, we're going to talk about Raquel Welch. She passed away February 15th, which was 5 days ago, at, let me check my notes, 82. Raquel Welch, you probably know her from many different things, many movies from the 1970s, 80s. She did a lot of things in the 90s, if I remember correctly. She was stunning. She was a Hollywood starlet, probably one of the first and most well-known. And unfortunately, she is no longer with us. She is one I always thought would come out to a convention around here, but unfortunately, she never did. So you will be missed as well. And this one came in yesterday, unfortunately, and at 78, we lost Richard Belzer. Now, Richard Belzer was what he's most known for, and what a lot of people will recognize him from, is Law and Order SVU. He was Ice Cube's partner, and I am a giant Law and Order fan. I have many seasons on DVD. And he was incredible. He brought an energy to that role that I think worked really well with Ice Cube as a partner. Ice Cube was very much, I think they wrote Ice Cube very much like his own personality, and I think Richard, being that grizzled veteran role, really played well to the somewhat young upstart cop and kicking indoors that Ice Cube was. And I think he played a very pivotal role on there. And I've always liked SVU. I like the regular Law and Order better, but SVU is always a second favorite to mine. And it was always a second favorite. Not a bit. Criminal Intent stuff is, we'll see. But definitely appreciate SVU and what they were trying to do with that show. And I think still are. I think it's still on. But anyways, you also might know him if you're a wrestling fan. He had a talk show back in the late 80s, early 90s called, coincidentally, Richard Belzer Show. And you might recognize him from a clip where Hulk Hogan was on there promoting WrestleMania 1 with Mr. T. And Richard Belzer being, I don't want to say poking the bear, but he was kind of poking the bear with Hulk Hogan about how predetermined, because I know a lot of wrestling fans hate that F word, predetermined wrestling was. And Hulk Hogan got Richard Belzer up and kind of put him in a front face lock and kind of choked him out right there on live TV. And accidentally, Richard fell and bashed the back of his head off the stage and instantly woke up and called for commercial. And I think there was a lawsuit, and it was pretty rough. It's a funny clip if you go watch it now. But that's another one that he was 78 and lived a full life. And actually, all three of them lived a full life. So to Raquel, Bert, and Richard, thanks for the memories. Now, we are here. We are here for the main event of the show. For anyone who is here watching this live, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you. Please stick around. You'll enjoy the rest of the show. If you haven't yet, please like this video. Please share this video. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Like I said, I'll be doing this once a week for the next until I run out of ideas. So hopefully not for a very, very long time. But please like this video, share it with your friends, your family. If anybody knows me, shove it down their throat because I don't ask for much. So I'm kidding. But yeah, please like, share, and subscribe. Greatly appreciate it. It gets everybody who knows me and doesn't know me. Thank you very much to my beautiful wife. I try my best to be cool, although a lot of the kids don't say I'm cool. Now, main event. Let's talk about my first Comic-Con. My first Comic-Con was in 2009, Fan Expo. Now, I'm not going to call it Fan Expo Canada because back then it wasn't Fan Expo Canada. It was just Fan Expo. Fan Expo Canada was actually the first Fan Expo, and it didn't have Informal was not the head of was not the organizing company. It was a different company. I can't remember the name of it. But that was their baby. There wasn't Fan Expo Vancouver, Fan Expo Saskatoon, Fan Expo Paluxy. It was just Fan Expo, and that was in Toronto. Now, I had heard of things called Comic-Con back in the day. I had heard, there's these Star Wars conventions, there's these Star Trek conventions, there's comic conventions, but I didn't know what they were. I heard about them, but I never really dug into, well, what do you do there? Who do you meet? What do you see? So one day we were I was sitting at home, and my brothers Tom and Gavin came over, and they said, we found this thing. Actually, let me take that back. They came over and they said, do you want to meet Bruce Campbell? Now, as a fan of Ash from Evil Dead, all the Evil Dead movies, Army of Darkness, we were watching Burn Notice at the time. I'm like, yes, I want to meet Bruce Campbell. But my first thought was, well, he's going to be at what, like a Walmart signing autographs or something? And he said, and my Tom goes, no, he's going to be at this thing called Fan Expo. And I said, what the heck is Fan Expo? He goes, Fan Expo is this thing in Toronto where everybody gets together and they sell and talk about comics and movies and blah, 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 blah. And it's 3 days in Toronto. And I said, oh, well, that's cool. What day is he going to be there? He goes, he's going to be there all weekend. I said, oh, well, that's cool. What day are we going to go? He goes, we're going to stay all 3 days. We're going to get a hotel, and we're going to stay in Toronto. Just the three of us. Ended up being four of us, but at the time, it was just the three of us. At 21, let me do the math. 21, I was like, I'm going to spend a weekend in Toronto with just Tom Gavin? Like, I don't want to say I lived a sheltered life, but I never went on trips with anybody but my mom and grandparents, and my dad. So this whole thought of going to Toronto, which I knew well, but being alone in Toronto? Okay, I'm more than excited. I'm just kind of, all right, we'll do this. So we ended up getting tickets, and we ended up getting a hotel, and we ended up splitting it between myself, Tom, Gavin, and Tom's little brother, Andy. Now, for the probably 2009, 2010, 2011, there was usually, coincidentally, a concert going on in Toronto a couple days before the event of Fan Expo that we would end up wanting to go to. This year, I can't remember what the show was, but Tom and I had gotten tickets to it. So we were heading to Toronto probably 3-4 days before the convention. And I said to Tom, well, we're going to be there. We booked the hotel. We had the tickets already. But I said, let's go check out the hotel just to make sure everything's on the up and up. We had called them. They said yes. And I said, well, let's go and just make sure. So we went to Toronto for the convention, or for the concert, and we ended up going to the hotel, which wasn't far from the concert venue. And we got there and we talked to the desk and we said, hey, we're blah, 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 blah. We're coming in a couple days for this convention. We made a reservation. Can you confirm it? And they looked it up on the computer and they said, yep, 1, 2, 3, 4 of you for 3 nights. It was a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We were leaving the Monday for 3 nights. Everything checks out. Thank you very much. We left. We walked to the venue. We saw the show. It was probably a great show. And we went home. So Fan Expo Friday comes around. We all meet up at the GO station downtown Hamilton, and we have our luggage. We hop on the GO train, and we head towards the big city of TO. We get off. We walk to the hotel. We wait in line, get up to the desk, and we say hi. We're blah 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 blah. We're checking into our room. He checks the computer. I don't have that reservation. And I said, what do you mean? We were just here a couple days ago, and one of your other employees approved this and said everything was on the up and up and everything worked. He said, yeah, we don't have anything. And I said, okay, well, I don't have a cell phone at this point. I know I should have had one, but I didn't. It was 2009. And the only person that had a cell phone was Tom. But Tom didn't have any data. And I said, well, Tom has the email with the confirmation on it. Can we use your Wi-Fi? No, you can't use the Wi-Fi because you're not a guest. Okay, well, what can we do? He said, well, the only way we can prove that you have a reservation is if you have an email. I said, okay, if we can't use your Wi-Fi, where can we use the Wi-Fi? He said, down the street, about 3 blocks is a Staples. They have free Wi-Fi. Okay, start walking. We're carrying luggage, so probably have 2 bags each, 4 guys. We're walking down the street, end of August, and getting a little frustrated. About a block before we hit Staples, Tom was able to ping off somebody's internet, pop the email up, got it, turned around, headed back to the hotel. A couple more people in line. We wait, walk up to the counter. As soon as we hit the counter, guy goes, found your reservation. And I said, thank God. I said, okay, cool, let's check in. And he goes, well, I only actually have a reservation for 3. There's 4 of you here. Now, in situations like this, I'm proud to say that I can usually keep pretty calm because I've been in enough of these situations to know that human error happens and that a lot of people aren't there just to make you mad. However, if anybody has ever met Tom has a temper. And Tom is now leaning over the counter, looking like he is about to punch this person in the face. To which I know if Tom leans over the counter and punches this guy in the face, we're A, getting arrested, B, not going to Fan Expo, C, out a whole bunch of money because we're not going to Fan Expo. So I simply put my hand on Tom's chest and I say, go sit in the corner. I will work this out. He begrudgingly goes over to the corner and sits down. I take the person behind the desk and I say, can I please speak to you over in the corner, just me and you? And I walk over and I said, look, you have our reservation. There's 4 of us. You have 3 of us. How do we make this work? Because we are getting very upset. As you can tell from my brother who is in the corner. He says with a small fee, we can make this work. And I said, cool, whatever, get us the room. So for a small fee, we're able to add the 4th person to our reservation. Tom is still ready to kill. But thankfully, after we sat down in the room, everything calmed down. Except that in the room with 4 people, there are 2 towels, 2 hand towels, and I think 1 bar of soap. When there should be, a couple shampoos, couple conditioner. Not the best place I've ever stayed, and not the best experience. And I can say that now because that hotel no longer exists. But yeah, that was, if I wasn't there, that may have become Tom's first arrest. And I'm glad I was able to put a stop to that, because yeah, if anybody works in the hospitality industry, I really hope that you understand that a lot of people come here for certain things, and they would just like to have as pleasant of a stay as they can. And we understand that human error happens, but try your best to make it work for the customer. Not always a thing, but try your best. Going to the con was amazing. Going to the con was something that it definitely changed my life. I was not aware. Let me take that back. I was aware there was a lot of people out there who liked the things that I did. I knew there was the whole nerd culture that is today was not as prevalent in 2009. It was still very low key, but I knew there was people like me out there in the world. I just had never met half of them yet. For those who've never been to Fan Expo, it's at the Metro Toronto Convention Center, and there's 2 buildings. There's the North Building, which is above ground, 2 floors. And there's the South Building, which is 4 floors going underground. And 2009 Fan Expo, it was so small, it only had 1 building, and that was the South Building, the underground one. And when we got there, there was a line outside that wrapped around both buildings. And it was at that moment where I went, oh, this is bigger than I thought. I didn't think this was going to be this. And then we walked in, and when you hit the bottom, the top floor of the South Building is kind of just administration. The second is, there's a couple things there now. Wasn't a lot back then. The 3rd floor is a lot of Q&A buildings and such, or rooms, I should say. The bottom floor is where all the stuff is. That's where the floor is. That's where all the vendors are and everything else. When I walked through those doors, my jaw hit the ground. And I don't use that term lightly. When you walk in and you see, as pretty much at that point, as far as my eye could see, nerd stuff and nerd people, you kind of just go, whoa, like this is the big roller coaster. Like, again, I knew conventions were a thing, but this is a thing, and this is a big animal. And the only thing that could come out of my mouth, and I say this every single time I walk through those doors every year, is home. Because I really did feel home. I felt at peace because I'd met my tribe, and it was a tribe that liked the same nerdy things that I did and was okay with it. They found it cool. They found it fun. They found it, this was their passion as much as mine. So that was definitely a moment in my life that I will never forget. And I try my best to recreate it every single time I go to Fan Expo every single year. I will another funny story that Tom Gavin and anyone who knows us lives in infamy is what is known as the man tracker story. Back in the day, there was a show called Man Tracker. For those who don't know, the Man Tracker show was basically there was two people in the middle of nowhere, and they had to get from point A to point B. It was going to take them 24 hours, including the night, to get there. And they went off like a house of fire with a little bit with a backpack and a few necessities. And I want to say 4 hours, something like that. The Man Tracker took off to try and catch them. And this guy was a trained outdoorsman, knew how to track people. I think he worked for the police at some point. And the show was to see who would get to the end first. Would the two people make it, or would Man Tracker make it? And there was always the, I think they started probably around 12 in the afternoon to 12 noon, went to 12 noon the next day. But there was always an overnight part, which I always found hilarious. And the overnight part would basically, if you've ever seen Blair Witch, it looked very similar to that. And they would be sitting there, and they would be a little green night vision camera, and they would basically saying same thing every single time. It was a long day, but we're gonna get out of tomorrow. And I was like, wouldn't it be hilarious if during that you've got a shot of their heads, and as they're doing the speech, wouldn't it be funny if Man Tracker just slides his head into frame and just goes, Man Tracker, and slides out? I said that to Tom and Gavin, and I think they wet themselves. They were laughing so hard at it because we all thought that would be the pinnacle of the show. So we had joked about this recently, and we were all watching it. We were watching the show, and coincidentally, when we got to the hotel, we flicked on the TV, and throughout the whole weekend, the only thing that was on was Man Tracker. So it was fresh in our minds. So we ended up going to bed that night. I think it was the first night, and it was me and Gavin in one bed, and Tom and his brother Andy on the couch, the pull-out couch. And we're laying there, lights are off, and I sleep on my side, arm up, looking out off the edge of the bed. And about 15 minutes after the lights go off, I hear this trying to be subtle, but not even slightly subtle, thump off the other side of the bed. And the weight went off when it thumped. And I hear across the carpet. And again, I'm leaning over the side of the bed. And I open my eyes just enough to see, but not wide. And I see Gavin's head come up and go, Man Tracker. Drops his head. Crawls back into bed. And then there's about 5 seconds of dead silence until Tom bursts into laughter. And we are just crying. It's so funny. Because it was the most perfect setup, the most perfect timing, and the least subtle way to do it. And that story will live in infamy of how Gavin will never be a stealth agent because he failed miserably that night doing it. The last part I want to talk about Fan Expo is meeting my first celebrity, and that was Bruce Campbell. This was the whole reason we went, and it was everything I had hoped. So I think we ended up meeting Bruce on the last day, on the Sunday, because he was packed. He was the guest of honor, and he could not have been sweeter. He was somebody. We had never been to a convention. Going to conventions for over 10 years and volunteering at conventions for so many years now, I've seen how human celebrities are. And if anybody's ever intimidated to meet their heroes at any of these conventions, please remember they are human. They are seriously the exact same as me and you. They just have a really cool job. That's all it is. That's all it is. I'm sorry to break the magic, but it makes you feel better knowing they're just human. And we waited, I think Gavin and I waited 45 minutes to meet Bruce. And I walked up and I shook his hand and I asked him, I can't remember what question I asked him. I asked him something. And he couldn't have been nicer. You know, he was thankful that we waited. The biggest thing was when we walked up, he was thankful that we waited 45 minutes. He asked how long we waited, and I said 45 minutes. And he said, I can't believe you waited 45 minutes to meet me. And that is one of the most humble things I've ever heard a celebrity say to somebody. It just like, it's just me. Like, I'm just Bruce Campbell. And it's like, no. You're Bruce Campbell. Like, you're somebody. So it was amazing meeting him, and it made me okay to meet my heroes. You hear the story of don't meet your heroes. Bruce made me want to meet my heroes. And thankfully, since then, I've met many of my heroes through conventions and going to conventions and volunteering at conventions, and they've all been great. I can't say that I met one that wasn't gracious and kind. And throughout the podcast and video show, whatever you want to call them, we'll be talking. Well, folks, 45 minutes. I honestly cannot believe we're here 45 minutes later. I really was thinking this would take 20 minutes, but wow, we actually did 46 minutes now. So we are just going to get to a few Q&As, and I will let you folks get on with your night. Again, thank you so much for anybody who is watching this live and anybody who is watching this post live. It really means a lot. I'm just a guy in a small town. Hamilton's not a small town. I'm just a guy in a town, in a city, sitting in a room watching, trying to help you guys enjoy some of these stories. And yeah, like seriously, for the people who are watching this, it's thank you. Like really, really thank you. We have a few questions, so we're going to get to a quick Q&A right now. So on Instagram, at Schwing54 asks, I want to cosplay, but I don't know where to begin. How do I start? The infamous question, how do I start? You start by making a cosplay. And that is the advice I give everybody. Whatever method you want to use, make one. Preferably something easy, preferably something that isn't going to cost a ton. I would not advise to build an Iron Man suit as your first cosplay. Build one. Take a couple photos. Maybe go to a convention if you're interested in going to a convention, and try it out. Don't spend $100,000 so odd dollars on some big suit because you might not enjoy it. Pick a character. The ones that always come to mind are the Sims. That one is just a bandana or a headband with a little thing sticking out and the green diamond thing. Something like that where you can wear street clothes. Something you can pick up from Value Village or any secondhand store you prefer. Punisher is a good one. Just build one and try it out. See if it works. And if you like it, do a second one. Maybe build a piece of it or build, sew a piece of it. Slowly build up to it, just like anything else. If you want to run a marathon, go out for a run. You want to get big muscles, lift weights. You got to start somewhere and start with one and keep going. And if you like it, you like it. If you don't, no biggie. You didn't spend a lot of money. It's okay. So that is my advice. At GroovyBaby88 on Facebook. Who is one person you would love to work with at a convention? I assume you mean celebrity. So, yeah. So here's the thing. For those who don't know, I do volunteer at the local conventions here, and I usually work around celebrities. I usually work what's called the celebrity line. which is if you're waiting in line to meet a celebrity, I'm usually the person right at the front of the table, sort of directing you up. Been doing that for a few years, I would say about 5 years. Over the years, I've met many of, like I said, my heroes. However, the ones that I don't want to say I wasn't a fan of. I knew who they were and I liked their work, but the ones that surprised me were the ones that were not the major ones. Because if you're a celebrity and you're working a convention and you're a William Shatner or a Harrison Ford, let's say, I've never worked with Harrison Ford, but if he was, he's going to be so busy, you're never going to see his personality. You're never going to see what he's like, just him, because he's going to be too busy signing autographs and shaking hands and kissing babies and whatever else you want to do. I would want to meet someone who's not huge, because like I said, I met the ones that are, and they're always too busy. I don't get to actually see them, interact with them if I can. I would say, because he's not who he is now, I would love to meet Stephen Amell. I've never met Stephen Amell. I've worked many conventions where he's been a guest, but I've never worked with him. I've never been working his line. But when he was Arrow, he was always nuts. And now that he's not Arrow and he's doing other things, I think he would be a little slower. And I would actually like to work his line. And I would love to meet him because he seems like a great guy. He's Canadian. How can he not be a great guy? Also, Nathan Fillion. Nathan Fillion would also be he's always seems like a dream to work with. And I've never heard a bad thing about him. So those two, Stephen Amell, Nathan Fillion. It'll probably change tomorrow. I'll probably think of one as soon as the camera's off. But those two for sure. Last question of the night from Smash Mouth Rocks on TikTok. If you could go back and tell your younger you one piece of advice, what would it be? If I could tell the younger me, what would it be? Trust your instincts. What you're doing is right, even when it's wrong. Because even through missteps and things that you thought were the right thing at the time, just keep going. It's okay. You'll get through it. Just, you're good. It'll all end up the way you want in the end. Because there was definitely some times where I really thought I was taking a left when I should have been taking a right. And I found out that all those turns were the right turns to make, because here I am now. And I'm talking to all of you, and hopefully you guys enjoyed the show. This was cool. This was pretty cool. 53 minutes, and we are done. Our first episode of Monday Night Nerd. For anybody who is still here, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. For anybody who's watching this in the future, thank you for watching the video. I greatly appreciate it. Please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. You can find me on Instagram, Myers Corp Creation, TikTok, Myers Corp Creation, Facebook, Myers Corp Creation. Again, thank you all for joining me tonight. I look forward to next week. Next week's topic. Do I have next week's topic lined up already? I know I had a few. Hold on. We are having technical difficulties. It's not technical difficulties. I'm just not ready. I don't have the list here, but definitely I will be here next week for a new episode of Monday Night Nerd. I will make sure to put out a social post in the next little while so you all can be ready for it. Thank you again, folks, for being here. It means the world to me. Thank you, folks. Have a good night. This is the end of episode of Monday Night Nerd. I'll see you all next week.